Chapter 2506, Return. Chapter 2506, Return to the Ziwei segmentum from Western Heaven. Yi Futian had to first pass through the divine prefecture. He passed by many places and heard many things. These past few years, the Ziwei segmentum had been sealed off from the outside world. Their news of the outside was naturally also cut off, so they did not know of the current changes to the outside world. However, on Yi Futian's way back, he obtained a lot of information. The lands of the original realm were now open to the various major worlds. It no longer solely belonged to the divine prefecture. The various worlds were now part of it. Unless the divine prefecture went to war with various worlds, it could only acquiesce in this. As time passed, the various major worlds opened up pathways to the original realm. It was the same for the lands of the divine prefecture. Each of the 18 domains had pathways leading to the original realm. This made Yi Futian emotional. It might be that the original realm had returned to how it was in ancient times. It served as the center of the world, and countless forces from various worlds gathered within it. As for how the original realm was overall, he was unable to find out. After all, the Ziwei segmentum did not have contact with the outside world, so he could not obtain useful information through his forces there. The changes of the world began in the original realm. Yi Futian recalled this prophecy. In Western Heaven, he learned that this prophecy had originated from the Western heavenly world and spread throughout the worlds. What did the changes of the world refer to exactly? Yi Futian and the others made a trip to Four Corner Village first. Back then, he had obtained a treasure from Princess Donghuang that could directly open a pathway from the original realm to the divine prefecture. However, he would not be able to use it for the trip back. That meant to say that he could leave the original realm, but not return to it unless he borrowed a passageway opened by Donghuang Imperial Palace. However, that was currently impossible for him. Fortunately, in Four Corner Village, Master had opened a passageway to the original realm for him. That way, Yi Futian had a path between the original realm as well as the divine prefecture. In the Ziwei segmentum, among the vast starry sky, galaxies shifted and starlight flowed. In the starry cultivation court of Ziwei Imperial Palace, many people raised their heads to the sky. They seemed to have sensed something as they revealed strange expressions. Yeah, a bolt of black lightning shot up past the clouds. A creature charged up into the starry sky. It was Black Wind Condor. When they saw this scene, the various cultivators in the starry cultivation court looked towards Black Wind Condor. Before this, they had already heard the news that Yi Futian would return. Now from Black Wind Condor's reaction, they understood that Yi Futian was back. At that moment, everyone stopped cultivating and quietly waited. Not long after, a group of people arrived. They did not enter the starry cultivation court from the passageway in Ziwei Imperial Palace, instead directly appearing here. Yi Futian controlled the will of Great Emperor Ziwei, so he naturally could do so. In the starry sky, a golden-winged giant pung bird dove down with its wings outstretched. Its wings blocked out the sun as it circled around in the starry sky. It then stabilized itself and floated in midair. On the back of the golden-winged giant pung bird, a few figures stepped forward. The person who stood in the center had white robes purer than snow. He looked down at the familiar faces below and smiled. His expression was gentle, and there was not a shred of aura emanating from his figure. He seemed like an ordinary person, yet he gave off an extraordinary vibe. Everyone knew that Yi Futian had improved greatly on his journey. Futian, Palace Lord, Younger Brother, Master. Many voices called out at the same time. Many titles were mentioned, but they all referred to the same person. They were all calling out to Yi Futian. Yi Futian had been away for more than a decade. It was such a long time. Now he had finally returned. I am back, said Yi Futian as he smiled at the familiar faces approaching him. Boss, how about you leave this golden feather to be educated by Condor-sama? Black Wind Condor asked Yi Futian. He had not taken his eyes off the golden-winged giant pung bird, Mo Yunzi. This golden-feathered bird was a great threat to his own position. Now that Master had returned, he had to seize the initiative and assert his dominance. Golden feather? Mo Yunzi's sharp eyes shot over towards Black Wind Condor like daggers. Was he Condor-sama? This was the first time Mo Yunzi had heard someone refer to him with such an uncouth name. He was the divine bird, the golden-winged giant Pung bird. Even in the world of Buddhism, he had standing, and was the mount of Buddhas. This black bird dared to call him such a name? What are you looking at? I, Condor-sama, have followed Master for many years. How can you be compared to me? Shouldn't you be showing your respect to yours truly? Black-winged Condor said in an arrogant tone. Buzz! Mo Yunzi could not tolerate this any longer. He immediately charged over with his golden claws outstretched. His dignity was still intact, even though he was now the mount of Yi Futian. He would not allow Black-winged Condor to walk all over him. Insubordination, chided Black-winged Condor as he dodged. The two demonic beasts took to the skies at extremely high speeds. The crowd watched this scene in surprise. Yi Futian had just returned, and these two demonic beasts had actually begun fighting. Yi Futian was also stunned. He then revealed a smile. Although these two fellows were fighting now, they were connected to him, and knew where to draw the line. Was your journey successful this time? Lord Taixian asked. Lord Taixian greeted Yi Futian politely first. He then looked to the others and said, It has been years since we last met. I have missed you all. Seniors, pardon me for not greeting you all individually. The crowd nodded in understanding. It wasn't that Yi Futian did not wish to follow protocol. There were just too many people. If Yi Futian were to greet them all one by one, he would waste a lot of time. Cultivators did not bother with such formalities anyway. Our journey this time was very successful, replied Yi Futian as he looked at Lord Taixian. He continued, I brought Qingqing to Western Heaven, and we went to Spirit Mountain. Qingqing was the reincarnation of the Buddhist lamp of the Buddha. She had accompanied the Buddha during his cultivation in her past life. She has now recovered her memories as ancient Buddha Qingdang. Yi Futian continued. Chun-Yi went to Great Bright Domain, and also obtained his inheritance. As for me, I had many fateful encounters in Western Heaven, and cultivated many miraculous Buddhist doctrines. I had the opportunity to come in contact with several high-tier Buddhist doctrines on this trip. I have reaped many benefits from them. Yi Futian summarized the experiences their group had over the past few years for the crowd. However, everyone knew that there was more to what he was telling them. This journey had certainly not been easy. Nevertheless, it seemed as though the benefits of this trip were indeed huge. The cultivation of these young fellows has also improved by a lot. It was well worth the trip. Emperor, she said as he looked at Feng Xiyuan and the others behind Yi Futian. Old Ma and the other cultivators from Four Corner Village also came forward. They revealed smiles as they looked at Little Ling and the others. Yi Futian smiled as he looked at the crowd and said, First elder brother, second elder sister, third elder brother, Do Zhao Muyu, all of you have improved greatly. These past few years, we have always been hard at work cultivating in the Ziwei segmentum. Since we were forced to seal ourselves away in the world of Ziwei, aside from cultivating, there was nothing else we could do. The Starry Cultivation Court also contains the will of the Great Emperor, so all of us have indeed improved greatly, Lord Taixian said with a smile. It is just that we do not know what has happened in the outside world, and how the heavenly mandate realm is currently. Lord Taixian seemed to still long for the heavenly mandate realm. Responded Yi Futian as he nodded his head. After so many years, I also wish to know how it is in the outside world currently. Now that I have returned, we can remove the seal on the Ziwei segmentum, and head out to take a look. Chapter 2507. New Grudges and Old Vendettas. Chapter 2507. New Grudges and Old Vendettas. Ever since Yi Futian left, the Ziwei segmentum had permanently been sealed off from the outside world. Everyone inside had been busy cultivating. They had been doing so for more than a decade. Although they had significantly improved, they also wanted to go back out into the world. After Yi Futian was reunited with everyone, he unlocked the seal of the Ziwei segmentum, allowing the others to go out and investigate the current changes to the original realm. However, Yi Futian did not dare to be too careless. Although it had been more than a decade, there were still many people who had their eyes on him and the Ziwei segmentum. Those who ventured out were required to have top Renhuangs accompany them. Of course, He also knew that he did not need to be overly worried for their safety. After all, for the various forces, their target was still him. They would not target the others. Aside from that, Yi Futian had a certain level of self-confidence. Having cultivated celerity, even powerful existences who survived the second stage of the divine tribulation of the Great Path would have a hard time capturing him. Saint Jinchan was not just an ordinary figure who survived the second stage of the divine tribulation of the Great Path. Back then, Lord Six Desires, Lord Liberty, as well as Lord Yi, all obeyed his commands. Yet, even Saint Jinchan had not managed to capture Yi Futian as he pursued him. He had been lured by Yi Futian to the colorless sea and killed. From this, Yi Futian understood that he already had means of self-preservation by relying on celerity. Of course, celerity served more functions than just self-preservation. The people in the Ziwei segmentum had been stuck inside for far too long. After the seal was unlocked, they all left to see the outside world. Yi Futian was not in a hurry to venture out. After returning, he did not rush to cultivate, instead spending time with those close to him, such as his teachers. He had not been able to see them for so many years. Now he naturally had to make up for it. Today, he was in a courtyard in Ziwei Imperial Palace playing chess with Qi Xiangang, his teacher and the previous imperial advisor of Dali. Yi Futian's elder brother Yan Yuan and the girl Fei Xue were also with them. They watched quietly as the two of them played chess. The current Yi Futian was no longer what he once was before. He was no longer the younger brother, who had headed over to the Dali dynasty to train. He now ruled over Ziwei Imperial Palace, and was once the ruler of the original realm. Although he had yet to reveal his cultivation upon returning this time, the members of Ziwei Imperial Palace speculated that he was already invincible at the Renhuang Plain. After all, it was already tricky for Renhuangs to contend with him more than a decade ago, let alone now that he had returned from the world of Buddhism. Qi Xiangang looked at the chessboard, and his eyes revealed a smile as he said, "It seems that you have benefited greatly from this trip to the Western world of Buddhism." "How could you tell?" asked Yi Futian. Qi Xiangang smiled as he explained, "The chessboard reflects this. Although you still have a sharpness like before, you have become steadier. You advance and retreat in an orderly fashion. Your disposition is different." He seemed to have witnessed Yi Futian's growth. Now the fate of the Ziwei segmentum was tied to Yi Futian. He might also still be related to the fate of the original realm. Qi Xiangang naturally knew that Yi Futian was extraordinary. He was a figure who could rewrite the history of the cultivation world. They were all witnesses to this history. "I comprehended Buddhist scriptures on Spirit Mountain in Western Heaven for many years, and had some enlightenment. It might be that I have changed slightly," Yi Futian replied with a smile. Qi Xiangang advised, "I heard that Buddhist doctrine is broad and profound. It is a shame that I never had the chance to come in contact with it. It is really fortunate for you to have had such an opportunity. Now the world is in chaos, and this chaos is not just restricted to one realm. The various worlds are all facing it. You should befriend those who can be befriended. At the same time, continue to strengthen yourself and the powers you govern. Otherwise, alone, it will be difficult for you to handle everything." "I understand," replied Yi Futian as he nodded his head and took this to heart. More than a decade ago, ever since he returned to the original realm from the Divine Prefecture, the world had been thrown into chaos. In the past, he had even been in the midst of this storm. Now, more than a decade later, he had cut off contact with the outside world, and had only made a trip to the world of Buddhism. However, the chaos of the outside world had not changed even after he left. The conflict had continued endlessly. When they looked back at this period of time in the future, it might be that it was merely a small portion of the chaos to ensue. At that moment, a fiery red silhouette dashed in from the outside. It was a divine phoenix that landed in the courtyard. It was Zifeng. After they met each other on Eastern Deity Island, she had always been following Yi Futian. Now, aside from the various demon clans that followed Yi Futian, he also had a few demonic beasts that followed him personally, such as Little Condor, Zifeng, and Mo Yunzi. When Yi Futian saw Zifeng appear, he suddenly felt emotional. Now his cultivation was already at the peak of the Renhuang Plain. and he had even survived a divine tribulation of the Great Path. From the looks of it, he needed to pick back up the alchemy techniques that he had inherited from Supreme Deity Donglai on Eastern Deity Island. If he concocted pills now, he would certainly be able to concoct the most powerful imperial-level elixir. It was just like his teacher Qi Xiangang had said. It was not enough for him to improve alone. In this chaotic world, with the Ziwei segmentum as his base, if he wanted to vie for power over the original realm, he needed to raise the power levels of the members in the entire Ziwei segmentum. In order to do so, alchemy would play a critical role. However, to concoct the highest level pills, they needed the prescriptions, as well as extremely precious medicinal materials. All of these needed to be gathered. Although the memories of Supreme Deity Donglai contain many precious prescriptions, for Yi Futian at his current cultivation level, they were no longer powerful enough. Mr. Qi, greeted Zifeng as she bowed towards Qi Xiangang. Although her cultivation was far superior to Qi Xuangang's, she still was exceptionally polite to him. After all, he was Yi Futian's teacher. Yi Futian's teachers did not have high cultivation. However, in the Ziwei segmentum, they all held high positions. No one dared not to respect them. This was naturally due to Yi Futian's ability and influence. Of course, this was also because he was very respectful to his teachers. If he did not show them respect, others would naturally follow suit. Qi Xiangang nodded as he returned the gesture. Zifeng, what news do you have of the outside world? Asked Yi Futian. From the news we have received from the outside, the various worlds have opened passageways to the original realm, Zifeng reported. These past few years, cultivators from the various worlds have been pouring into the original realm, causing the number of cultivators there to grow exponentially. The various worlds also have many strongholds. Currently, the original realm has become a gathering place for the cultivators of the various worlds. Besides that, many relics have emerged. There are even ancient ruined realms floating in the void, and some of them have emperor's relics. All of them have been explored. In many places, cities, and even whole continents have been established. That means to say that there have been many more realms appearing in the original realm over the years? Asked Yi Futian. In the past, the original realm had 9 supreme regions, and was called the 3,000 realms of the Great Path. However, with the changes to the original realm, many unknown lands had emerged and were gradually being explored, becoming new realms. Replied Zifeng as she nodded her head. It is not just that. The top forces of the various worlds have directly established realms in order to develop strongholds and allow more cultivators from their worlds into the original realm. They are all frenziedly developing their own powers. From the looks of it, the original realm is once again becoming the center region of the various worlds, lamented Qi Xiangang. Yi Futian nodded and said, countless years ago, legend has it that the original realm was once the only world. After the collapse of the heavenly path and countless eons of changes, our current situation was established. However, it seems that the original realm contains infinite mysteries. These mysteries have surfaced over the years. Hence, the various worlds have all gathered in the original realm and have constantly competed. It is indeed akin to the center of the universe. This chaotic world is both a catastrophe and a fateful encounter. This will certainly be a grand era, added Qi Xiangang. The Devil Emperor ended the chaos in the Devil world, whereas Donghuang the Great and Emperor Yi Qing ended the chaos in the Divine Prefecture. Now that the chaos in the original realm has spread across the various worlds, who will be the one to determine the rise and fall of each world? Yi Futian nodded his head. At that moment he frowned slightly. He heard something. What is it? Qi Xiangang asked when he saw Yi Futian's expression change. There are some things that I need to settle. Teacher, I will head back first, Yi Futian said as he got up. Go ahead, replied Qi Xiangang as he nodded his head. Now Yi Futian was the ruler of the Ziwei segmentum. He needed to oversee everything around here. Qi Xiangang naturally understood this. Yi Futian's figure immediately disappeared without any fluctuations of aura as he sat there. When Qi Xiangang and Yin Yuan witnessed this scene, they were stunned. From the looks of it, after returning this time, Yi Futian was even stronger than they had imagined. However, no one knew the exact extent of his powers yet. Yi Futian directly appeared in one of the squares of Ziwei Imperial Palace. Quite a number of people were here. A few of them were injured. These cultivators were one of few groups who left the Ziwei segmentum. They were mostly cultivators from the original realm, including Xiao Dingtian and Xiao Muyu from the Xiao clan, Dou Zhao, and the clan lord of the Dou tribe. All of them were actually injured. What happened? Asked Yi Futian. We were ambushed, responded Xiao Dingtian. The asterisk starts, cursed Dou Zhao, who had a short temper. They were cultivators from the Donghua domain chief's manor. The leader was Ning Hua. He knew that we emerged from the Ziwei segmentum. He actually planned to kill us all, not giving us any chance of survival. Ning Hua. A cold look flashed in Yi Futian's eyes. So it was Ning Hua, the vice chief of the Donghua domain chief's manor. Back when Yi Futian was in the Donghua domain, Ning Hua hunted him relentlessly. Zongchan, the disciple of the Millet Emperor, had been killed by him too. Yi Futian had always kept this vendetta at heart. Now, Ning Hua actually attacked his alliance again, after knowing that they left the Ziwei segmentum. Xiao Dingtian continued. Ning Hua is a 9th-tier Renhuang now. His Great Path is flawless, and he is proficient in the Grand Seal Great Path. He is strong. It was difficult for us to withstand his attack, even with our combined powers. Fortunately, we received help from Mr. Tai, so we were barely able to escape. As he said this, he revealed a look of gratitude towards blind Tai. Yi Futian was well aware that Ning Hua was very powerful. Since a long time ago, Ning Hua was crowned the strongest proud son of heaven of the Donghua domain. There were 4 famous young cultivators in total. However, Ning Hua stood head and shoulders above the other 3 youths. He was exceptionally capable, and was ranked first among the 4 of them. Xiao Dingtian was naturally not a match for Ning Hua, whose cultivation had reached the 9th tier of the Renhuang Plain. Xiao Dingtian added, Ning Hua's extremely arrogant. He called us vermin who could only hide in the Ziwei segmentum. He threatened to kill us all without mercy if we dared to step out to the outside world. When Yi Futian heard this, his facial expression turned as cold as ice. Ning Hua always had a high opinion of himself, and was extremely presumptuous. Moreover, he bore a strong animosity towards Yi Futian. Ning Hua losing to Yi Futian, when they were cultivating in the Starry Cultivation Court, was one of the causes which led to Ning Hua's hatred towards him. However, now things were no longer as they had been. If Ning Hua still wanted to provoke Yi Futian, then Yi Futian would settle both new grudges and old vendettas with him in one shot. Chapter 2508. Walking into the Lion's Den? Chapter 2508. Walking into the Lion's Den? In Ziwei Imperial Palace, Yi Futian met with the Millet Emperor and Li Changsheng. One was the master of Zongchan, and the other was his elder brother. Both of them were close to Zongchan. Now that Yi Futian was heading over to seek revenge, they had to be present. I will also head over to take a look, said Emperor Shi. His group had also come. Emperor Shi, thunder-punishing Skylord, and Emperor Shi's disciple Yang Wuqi were here. In the past, when Yi Futian was chased by Ning Hua, it was Yang Wuqi who had rescued Yi Futian and blocked off Ning Hua. During the conflict back then, Emperor Shi's group had grown closer to Yi Futian. They were also very curious about the Starry Cultivation Court, and had been cultivating here all this while. Even when the Ziwei segmentum was sealed away, they remained here. If the Ziwei segmentum with Yi Futian, as its center, was considered independent from the various other forces, then Emperor Shi's group would also be considered part of the Ziwei segmentum faction. In terms of relationship, Emperor Shi and Yi Futian were not very close. He had merely aided Yi Futian at that time, and thought highly of him. Emperor Shi himself was a man who was solely focused on cultivation. He had no desire for authority and influence. Hence, he had always been cultivating on Turtle Deity Island before this. Afterward, when he was exposed for aiding Yi Futian, he offended the domain chief of the Donghua domain, Ning Yuan. He could not remain on Turtle Deity Island any longer. He was also attracted to the miraculous Starry Cultivation Court, which possessed a relic of a great emperor. Due to these reasons, he gradually ended up growing close with Yi Futian's faction. Although they were close, They never mentioned that they would join Yi Futian's group. They were merely borrowing the space for cultivation. However, after cultivating for many years here, it was clearly inappropriate to dust off their sleeves and leave. Moreover, in this current grand era, they wanted to witness how far Yi Futian and the Ziwei segmentum would go. The Black Turtle had also advised Emperor Shi not to attempt the second stage of the divine tribulation of the Great Path. When it took the blow for him, it would be the end for Emperor Shi. However, Emperor Shi understood that it was impossible for him not to attempt it. If he wanted to take that step, the Starry Cultivation Court might be an opportunity for him. Here, he could comprehend the will of the great emperor at all times. Yi Futian glanced at the people around him. The Millet Emperor had a cold and indifferent expression. Li Changxing also had a stern look on his face. They had been waiting for this day for a very long time. They would never forget Zhongchan's death. Let's go. After the group gathered, the golden-winged giant Peng bird Mo Yunzi served as their mount. He spread his wings and took to the skies, leaving Ziwei Imperial Palace behind in an instant. Dozhao, where is Ninghua now? Asked Yi Futian. Dozhao replied. The 18 domains of the Divine Prefecture have all established pathways to the original realm. The Donghua domain has also done the same, and the passageway is controlled by the domain chief's manor. They established a realm in the original realm and called it the Donghua realm. After more than a decade, it has grown to a considerable scale. This Donghua realm is directly linked to the Donghua domain in the Divine Prefecture. For many years, cultivators have continuously descended from the Donghua domain. Many of these cultivators, including those from the various major forces in the domain, have set up strongholds in the Donghua realm. Xiao Dingtian added. They call it the Donghua realm, but it is not that impressive. After all, the population is still too small. It is more akin to a city. It is a relic discovered by the Donghua domain chief's manor, seized and occupied by them. They developed it afterward. However, the capabilities of the Donghua domain are limited, and the relic is not very precious. Otherwise, they would not have been able to hold on to it up until now. Someone added, that's right. These past few years, the outside world has been in a frenzy over relics. The conflict has never ended, although war has yet to erupt between the Divine Prefecture, the Dark World, and the empty Divine Realm. They have been slaughtering, pillaging, and fighting over territory. Yi Futian nodded his head. From the looks of it, the outside world had changed dramatically, while the Ziwei segmentum had been sealed away. 4 top-level forces. It was not difficult for them to create a city out of thin air. As for the pillaging of the resources of the original realm, he naturally could imagine that happening. The Millet Emperor analyzed. The Donghua realm is connected to the domain chief of the Donghua domain. If we attack Ninghua, Ning Yuan will surely come to assist him. I can hold Ning Yuan back. However, you still have quite a lot of enemies in the original realm. Many of them want to kill you. You must settle the score with Ninghua as soon as possible. If we get encircled, the situation will become very messy. Do you have any plans in mind? In the past, with the help of the Wangshan Watchtower, the Millet Emperor was able to put up a fight with Ning Yuan and found a way to retreat. Even though the Millet Emperor was severely injured in the process, he was able to escape alive. After devoting himself to cultivating for many years, the Millet Emperor now had an even more profound cultivation. He could engage Ning Yuan in a battle for a short period of time with the aid of the Wangshan Watchtower. If Emperor Shi were willing to join the battle, it would be even better. Nevertheless, their group should not linger in the original realm for very long. It's a 9th-tier demon emperor, someone pointed out. With a dash, many renhuangs took to the sky. A 9th-tier demon emperor had come. Moreover, it was carrying quite a few cultivators with it. Something big was about to happen. Let's go and take a look. One by one, the local cultivators dashed and tailed the golden-winged giant Peng bird from a distance away. They wanted to see what would happen. For the cultivators to be able to use a 9th-tier demon emperor as a mount, what level would they be at? They might have come to the Donghua realm bearing ill intentions. The Donghua Palace was the branch set up by the Donghua domain chief's manor in the original realm. Vice Chief Ning Hua was cultivating in the palace. He had returned from his adventure not long ago, after discovering that the cultivators from the Ziwei segmentum had come out to the outside world again. He taught them a lesson. He would have killed some of them if a few experienced cultivators from the other party had not joined forces to push him back. As for Yi Futian, he was now the common enemy of all forces of the Divine Prefecture. A while ago, there was news of him visiting the Great Bright Domain, and then the world of Buddhism. Ning Hua's father, Ning Yuan, heard some rumors from the imperial palace, claiming that Yi Futian was hunted by other cultivators when he was in the world of Buddhism. The divine body of Xinjia the Great Emperor had been destroyed. Apparently, Yi Futian went to explore Western Heaven after that. There were no detailed updates of his trip there. After all, Western Heaven had no connections with the Divine Prefecture. They could only learn bits and pieces of information regarding Yi Futian through the imperial palace. Yi Futian had indeed gone to a very far place. Now that so many years had passed, he would most likely be back, right? Otherwise, it would be unwise for the cultivators to emerge from the Ziwei segmentum and be active in the outside world again. However, since Yi Futian had lost the divine body of Xinjia the Great Emperor and had become the common enemy of the Divine Prefecture, Ning Hua was curious to see how long it would take before Yi Futian could muster his courage to leave the Ziwei segmentum himself. As for Ning Hua, since many other cultivators revealed their talents during the chaos of the original realm back then, he was no longer a bright cultivator people looked highly upon in the original realm now. Taking Yi Futian as an example, he was almost invincible among the Renhuangs. This caused Ning Hua to feel very stressed. Therefore, he had been training hard to improve himself. Currently, Ning Hua's cultivation was at the peak of the Renhuang Plain. He believed that in a few years, he would have the opportunity to undergo the divine tribulation. At that moment, a powerful pressure descended outside the Donghua Palace. This caused Ning Hua to frown. At the same time, in the Donghua Palace, cultivators took to the skies one after another. They looked up into the sky and saw a divine golden-winged giant peng bird floating in midair. Its gaze was as sharp as daggers. On the back of the divine golden-winged giant peng bird, a very familiar group of figures stood. The leader was dressed in white robes and had white hair. Everyone in the Donghua Palace knew who he was. During the Donghua banquet, Yi Futian had astounded everyone in the Donghua domain. After so many years, Yi Futian actually dared to emerge from the Ziwei segmentum. Yi Futian gazed down below from the back of the golden-winged giant peng bird and shouted, "Ning Hua!" His voice reverberated throughout the space and shook the Donghua Palace. This caused the hearts of countless people to tremble. Ning Hua appeared. At the same time, several beams of spatial light shone in the Donghua Palace. It seemed as though teleportation grand matrices had been activated. When Yi Futian's group saw this scene, they did not do anything to stop it. It could even be said that they did not mind it at all. It was as though they had not seen it. Their gazes were fixed on the figure emerging from the Donghua Palace. It was the previous top monstrous figure, and the vice chief of the Donghua domain, Ning Hua. "Yi Futian," Ning Hua called out as he looked up at the group of figures in the sky. He never thought that Yi Futian would emerge from the Ziwei segmentum and appear here. For a moment, the members of the Donghua Palace, as well as countless people in the surrounding area, all raised their heads and looked up at the gigantic divine bird in the sky. Was Yi Futian here to seek vengeance? Spatial light shone. In Donghua Palace, cultivators kept appearing. They were all cultivators from the supreme forces of the Donghua domain. Cultivators from Divine Palace of Fluttering Snow, Taihua Mountain, Nanhua Clan, Desolate God Palace, and other major forces appeared. They all looked towards Yi Futian and were somewhat surprised. It had been many years since the great emperor revealed himself, and Yi Futian sealed himself away in the Ziwei segmentum. However, for Yi Futian, this amount of time was still far from enough. For Yi Futian to emerge from the Ziwei segmentum now was undoubtedly him walking into the lion's den. Many people had a score to settle with him. Chapter 2509. Ning Hua's Big Defeat. Chapter 2509. Ning Hua's big defeat in those forces that sided with the Donghua domain. Many people were close to Yi Futian. For example, The sword goddess from the divine palace of fluttering snow was one of them. She even sided with Yi Futian's camp and fought with him once. However, later, it was disclosed that Yi Futian had something to do with Emperor Yi Qing. After being informed of that, the imperial palaces were irritated. Dong Huang the Great even took up the matter in person. In such circumstances, the forces in the divine prefecture did not have any other option at all. And Yi Futian completely understood that. The divine palace of fluttering snow fixed its relationship with the domain chief's manor after the passage was opened, so they were also in the Donghua Palace at the moment. The sword goddess and her disciples, Qin Qing, Jiang Yueli and Chu Hanxi, were all there. They all set their pretty eyes on Yi Futian. Gazing at the white-haired young man that had returned, they wondered how he had been cultivating all the past years. Taihua Skylord and Goddess Taihua from Taihua Mountain were also there. Goddess Taihua threw Yi Futian a complicated look. She had the opportunity to inherit one of the imperial stars once, which Yi Futian had offered her. However, she missed it due to her guard against him. And that was because of the relationship between the domain chief's manor and Ninghua. By then, Yi Futian had returned with such a powerful lineup. Was he going to settle things with Ninghua? Ninghua, you kept chasing me after the Donghua banquet in the Donghua domain. The domain chief's manor killed everyone from Wangshan Watchtower. So many years have passed, and you hurt the practitioners from the Ziwei segmentum again. Today, you will pay with your life. Yi Futian looked down at Ninghua, filled with pride. That scene contrasted sharply with the condescending manner in which Ninghua had looked down at him when Yi Futian attended the Donghua banquet. Big shots from various top forces in the Donghua domain were all sitting in the air back then. As the vice chief of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain, Ninghua did not even look at Yi Futian. However, people seemed to see Yi Futian's despise for Ninghua at the moment. There was contempt in his indifferent tone. He sounded like he had never regarded Ninghua as a decent opponent. Do you intend to kill me? Ninghua showed a sarcastic smile. Looking at Yi Futian, he said, "The divine body of Xinjia the Great Emperor is broken. How dare you leave the Ziwei segmentum? The Great Emperor was merciful enough to let go of you. But now that you are already here, you won't be able to go back again." Several divine lights containing the formidable force of the Great Path of Space descended into the Donghua Palace as soon as he finished speaking. As those divine lights came, practitioners showed up from thin air in different directions. All of them were powerful. Yi Futian already met some of them before. Although he did not know them well, many of those people were there when that incident happened. All of them seemed to be powerful cultivators from the domain chief's manor. Forces from the domain chief's manor of the Shangqing domain were among them too. Zhou Muhuang, the vice chief, was one of them. I guess your scouts already got some information for you. The domain chief's manor in the divine prefecture opened the passage to the void realm. But do you know there are space teleportation grand matrices set up between various domain chiefs' manors in the divine prefecture? Ninghua asked him in a cold tone. The domain chiefs' manors of the 18 domains in the divine prefecture did not get along. Even if one of them were in trouble, the others probably would not go to its rescue. That being said, they would certainly send quite a few people in the event that Yi Futian showed up. It was the order of the imperial palaces to set up those space teleportation grand matrices. They were established to deal with any world war that could break out in the future, so that help could arrive anytime. To their surprise, its first use was to deal with Yi Futian. That area was immediately filled with powerful energy, in which the Donghua Palace was shrouded. All of those powerful cultivators set their eyes on Yi Futian. Some of them had even gone through the divine tribulation of the Great Path once. After all, the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain was relatively weak among the 18 manors. In contrast, some of them were very powerful. Yi Futian, Zhou Muhuang shouted. You shouldn't have left. Yi Futian threw an indifferent glance at Zhou Muhuang. He responded with a cold look. I came here for Ninghua. It's none of anyone else's business. So you'd better not intervene. Zhou Muhuang frowned at him. And many people put on a shocked look. That guy was still so arrogant. Didn't he know what he had got himself into? How would he resist such a powerful lineup? Staring at Yi Futian, Ninghua was somewhat surprised. He had thought Yi Futian would panic in despair. In fact, many people around Yi Futian had. After all, they had had no idea that the stations of different domains in the divine prefecture were connected. However, Yi Futian neither panicked nor despaired. He just remained pushy and arrogant. Why was that? Boom! Ninghua gave off a powerful aura. While he was suspended in the air, the force of the Grand Seal Great Path spread far and wide. It was horrifying. Even that pair of eyes had a powerful force. Gazing at Yi Futian, he said, "You intend to kill me? Have you achieved any breakthrough all this time?" Chinny. Glancing at Ninghua indifferently, Yi Futian said, "Kill him." Yes. Chinny nodded. He walked ahead, and Ninghua was petrified. Yi Futian's indifferent gaze made him realize that this man did not even bother to fight him. Yi Futian totally ignored him, and sent Chen Yi to deal with him. Yi Futian was already very powerful back then. He showed tremendous combat power when he was at the 8th level. Ninghua was not sure about defeating him indeed. However, he could not believe Yi Futian had sent Chen Yi to fight. When Yi Futian defeated Chen Yi in the Donghua banquet, Ninghua was already the #1 genius in the Donghua domain. But Yi Futian despised him to such an extent? Boom! A surprising sealing force broke out. Numerous sealing runes showed up on his body. It was the God Seal spell. Instantly, that great path of space seemed to be closed. The moment Ninghua, who had achieved the peak Renhuang plane, gave that force off, the great path domain newly erected seemed to block all other forces. The divine light of the seals flew out of Ninghua's eyes toward Chen Yi, aiming at the latter's eyes while he was approaching the former. That divine light of the seals could even seal spiritual souls. The God Seal spell could seal everything in the world. Countless seal spells fell from the sky and turned into the divine lights of the great path that flew to Chen Yi, intending to seal all of his forces. However, at the same moment, two formidable lights also came from Chen Yi's eyes. Those were the real light. The method of light crashed into the divine light of the seals and blocked the invasion of the sealing force. In the meantime, his body was shining and turned into the body of light that looked like a divine body. His body floating in the air seemed to be the source of light. The lights from him were bright enough to blind people's eyes and purify everything in the world. Meeting the divine lights of the seals in the air, they surprisingly turned those runes into nothing. Is he so strong? Those powerful cultivators were looking at the two's battlefield from far away. That divine light was dazzling. Many Renhuang standing in the distance felt their sights were blocked, although they were not the ones being attacked. They could hardly open their eyes in that light. The powerful cultivators from the Donghua domain were even more nervous. Chen Yi was also from the Donghua domain. It was from there that he left for the Donghua banquet with Yi Futian. And by then, Chen Yi turned out to be so dreadful. He was on the peak Renhuang plain. In the fight against Ninghua, his path of light suppressed Ninghua's God Seal spell. Even the practitioners around Yi Futian were shocked by the fact that Chen Yi was already strong enough to defeat Ninghua, let alone others. As Chen Yi approached Ninghua floating, numerous beams of light shot at the latter. Ninghua turned pale. His body seemed to transform into the sealing body of the great path. When lights shone on him, they were immediately sealed. At the same time, a dreadful divine light of the seals flew from him, carrying an aura above his level. A rune showed up behind him. It was the seal spell. And it was growing bigger and bigger. As if formed by numerous seal spells, it turned into a giant seal. Ninghua made some noises with his mouth. A paramount aura blossomed in him. Then he pointed ahead, and the giant seal spell showed up in front of the finger he used to point. As he moved ahead, wherever he passed, the light was sealed right away. He leaped to Chen Yi this way in an irresistible manner. He resorted to the will of the emperor with the super-powerful ancient character. Something unusual must have happened to Ninghua, too, Yi Futian thought to himself. No wonder Ninghua was so confident. But unfortunately, his opponent was Chen Yi, who had the inheritance of the light. Seeing the giant seal spell that had blocked the sun moving through countless beams of lights toward him aggressively at a high speed, Chen Yi waved his hands. In an instant, a beam of light that was 10,000 zhonglong blossomed, and a divine and inviolable shadow showed up behind him. The divine method of light, the way of light. Yi Futian knew the fight was over as soon as he saw that. Back then, Blind Chen opened his eyes at all costs to exert the divine method of light. However, Chen Yi had got the real inheritance of the light, and he was already able to use the divine method. As soon as this method was exerted, everything in the world would be purified by the light. That giant seal's spell broke into pieces again and again. One after another rune was crushed. Little by little, the giant rune collapsed, falling in front of Chen Yi. Ninghua shouted in shock. He was almost blinded, and he could not open his eyes at all. Blood flowed out of his eyes. The force of light got in contact with him and penetrated him. "You are going too far," some powerful cultivator shouted after seeing that. Dreadful energy fell, intending to stop Chen Yi from killing. They had not expected him to be so strong that Ninghua was completely overwhelmed by him. Boom! When that boom came, dreadful energy exploded. The Millet Emperor was going farther and farther away from Wangshan Watchtower. Wangshan Watchtower fell and overwhelmed the entire area, so that no one could intervene. Many powerful cultivators turned pale. On the battlefield, Chen Yi had gained complete control over Ninghua's life or death. Ninghua was obviously in agony. It seemed he would die instantly as long as Chen Yi wanted him to. There were great pains in Ninghua's eyes. He had never imagined he would end up like this. He failed to defeat Chen Yi, not to mention Yi Futian. And Chen Yi even brought his life or death under control, and totally overcame him. "How dare you?" At this moment, a horrifying aura descended. Boundless space was shrouded in it. The vast world seemed to be sealed. A figure showed up. It was Ning Yuan, the chief of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain. He had just got here. He glanced at where Chen Yi was, and gave off formidable energy as soon as he showed up. Chapter 2510. A Devastating Kill. Chapter 2510. A devastating kill. The dreadful force of the Grand Seal Great Path sealed the sky over there, and shrouded the vast area where the Donghua Palace was located. Naturally, Yi Futian and others were also wreathed in the sealing force. Next to Yi Futian, Emperor Shi threw him a glance. Chen Yi's strength was shocking indeed. He suppressed Ninghua with ease, and even could decide the latter's life or death. But the current situation was not favorable for many people. Putting Ning Yuan's power and bossiness aside, the predatory cultivators from various domain chiefs' manors around there were also paying close attention. If Ninghua died, it was hard to say what would happen. It would not be easy for Chen Yi and others to leave there safely. "Let go of him." Looking at Chen Yi, Ning Yuan shouted in a cold voice. A vague aura of the Grand Seal Great Path moved toward Chen Yi, as if it could seal him any time. "You'd better stay put," Chen Yi warned Ning Yuan. He certainly knew what was on Ning Yuan's mind. Ning Yuan kept staring at him. Then, darting a glance at Yi Futian and others, he said in a cold tone, "If you dare hurt him, none of you will leave here alive. And I will kill every person that comes from the Ziwei segmentum in the future." Ning Yuan sounded arrogant and confident. Actually, he had every reason to behave like that. He went through his tribulations years ago. Even powerhouses like Emperor Shi could not deal with him with ease. The Millet Emperor fought Ning Yuan with his back to Wangshan Watchtower once, and he ended up badly injured and had to flee. However, Ning Yuan did not calculate Yi Futian's combat power. Neither did he know how good Yi Futian was at the moment. But no matter how good he was, how strong could this man who used to be a level 8 Renhuang be? Even if he had achieved level 9, what could he do when confronting Ning Yuan? Chen Yi looked at where Yi Futian was. He was a little hesitant, and seemed to be waiting for the latter's order. But Yi Futian looked pretty calm. He was gazing at Ning Yuan indifferently. He could have come here alone this day, and it would be a piece of cake for him to kill Ninghua. However, Ninghua was the one who killed Zhong Chan. The Millet Emperor and Li Changxing must witness his death with their own eyes. And Ning Yuan was behind all that. Yi Futian was sure he had never provoked Ning Yuan. He even attended the Donghua banquet, trying to find favor in Ning Yuan's eyes, and join the domain chief's manor. But Ning Yuan pushed him into hell, and drove him onto a completely different path. He wanted Ning Yuan to feel the despair that he and the Millet Emperor had felt. "Blood will bring blood." Looking at Ning Yuan, Yi Futian said. His voice made everything seem quieter. Blood will bring blood. Yi Futian was still going to kill Ning Hua. Everyone around Yi Futian realized how determined he was. Emperor, she took a step forward to stand in front of Yi Futian with the Millet Emperor. They were ready to confront Ning Yuan. If Yi Futian decided to kill Ning Hua, Emperor Shi would certainly try his best to cooperate. He had gained a lot from the cultivation at the Starry Cultivation Court these years. It was time for him to take sides. Ning Yuan's look turned extremely cold when he had seen that. He threw Emperor Shi a glance, surprised the latter had teamed up with Yi Futian and got involved in this disturbance. Do you have the nerve to kill me? Ning Hua was not his own man at the moment, but he still did not look like he would lower his head. He darted Yi Futian a cold look. Yi Futian was going to kill him outside the Donghua Palace in the presence of various domain chiefs manors of the Divine Prefecture? How would Yi Futian get out of there after killing him? Yi Futian looked at Ning Hua with pity. He still did not think Yi Futian had the nerve to kill him. Bring him over, Yi Futian said. Okay. Chen Yi nodded. Then he took Ning Hua to Yi Futian. Yi Futian and Ning Hua gazed at one another. He saw Ning Hua's reluctance to yield in the latter's eyes. If I die, all of you here will die with me together. The number one proud son of heaven of the Donghua domain? Glancing at Ning Hua with despise, Yi Futian said, pathetic. He lifted a finger after speaking. A sword will was coiling around the tip of his finger, giving off dreadful destructive energy. How dare you? Seeing that, Ning Hua turned pale. Yi Futian. Ning Yuan shouted. The Grand Seal Great Path became even more powerful. Divine lights moved to Yi Futian, and Emperor Shi and the Millet Emperor acted at the same time to keep Ning Yuan away from Yi Futian. Blood will bring blood. Yi Futian moved his finger toward Ning Hua's brow chakra and touched him without hesitation. In an instant, the sword will on his finger pierced through Ning Hua's brow chakra, and a destructive force destroyed his spiritual soul. Ning Hua opened his eyes wide, staring ahead. There was shock and despair in his eyes. He could not believe Yi Futian had made a fatal move to kill him there for real. How dared he? How dared Yi Futian kill him? He was the proud son of heaven, the vice chief of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain. His talent was paramount. He had the sealing body of the Great Path. As the number one genius in the Donghua domain, he would be even stronger than his father and succeed to the domain chief's position in the Donghua domain for sure. Actually, he was even more ambitious than that. He wanted to prove his path. However, by then, all that ended outside the Donghua Palace, where Yi Futian came to settle accounts with him and killed him. How ironic. It was super quiet around. Many practitioners' hearts were in their mouths. That was ruthless. Yi Futian really did it. He killed the son of Ning Yuan, the chief of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain, outside the Donghua Palace. However, how would he leave after that? He is crazy. The sword goddess of the Ice Palace and the forces from the Donghua domain were all shocked. They could hardly believe Ning Hua had died. Ning Hua, who had reached the 9th level, had been at the peak in the Donghua domain. Even the sword goddess was 100% sure that she could defeat him. However, in this fight, Ning Hua suffered a big loss and then died at the hands of Yi Futian. That just did not seem to be real. None of them could believe it. Ning Hua. Bang! A dreadful aura broke out. Ning Yuan's eyes became bloodshot and were filled with incomparably strong killing intent. Yi Futian killed Ning Hua under his nose. That was his favorite son, his future successor, who would surpass him one day for sure. He saw the future of the Donghua domain in Ning Hua, and that would be a brand new era. But everything ended there because of Yi Futian. The practitioner Ning Yuan used to contempt and be able to kill with a flick of his fingers, or a wave of his hand killed his son Ning Hua. Instantly, the force of the Great Path exploded. It was horrifying. An awful sealing storm started in the sky, in the boundless space, approaching this area. Boom! A terrifying noise emerged. The Millet Emperor went all out too. He looked as if he and Wangshan Watchtower had turned into one. A divine stela showed up in the air and covered the whole sky, blocking Yi Futian and others, so that Ning Yuan would not find any opportunity to hurt them. Emperor Shi acted too. Xuan with a black turtle appeared in the air and was trying to suppress Ning Yuan. so that he would not go ballistic and hurt people. I, Ning Yuan, will pay a handsome reward to whoever killed the practitioners from the Ziwei segmentum and Yi Futian. A voice that sounded as cold as ice came through the air. Ning Yuan, intercepted by two strong men at the moment, saw Yi Futian's mount, the golden-winged giant pung bird, retreating. He certainly did not want to see Yi Futian flee. Ning Hua was killed here this very day. How could he let Yi Futian and the practitioners from the Ziwei segmentum leave here alive? As soon as he finished speaking, a dreadful might spread across that area, with the Donghua Palace being the center, and left the whole area wreathed in a depressive air. The golden-winged giant pung bird felt heavy, because many powerful cultivators had exerted the might of the Great Path to suppress them. The practitioners from various domains of the Divine Prefecture always wanted to keep Yi Futian there. Those domain chiefs' manners had been informed of the destruction of the divine body. However, Yi Futian still had a lot of secrets, including many inheritances of the great emperor. And he certainly had gained a lot from the trip to the world of Buddhism in the Western Heaven too. More than that, if they killed Yi Futian, they could take all the credit in front of Princess Donghuang. Couldn't they? Who was Donghuang the Great? He would not bother to handle a young man. But Yi Futian was Emperor Yi Qing's successor. The imperial palace absolutely would not mind them killing him. Many people were hostile to Yi Futian, although their reasons might vary. And such a good opportunity came up. Yi Futian left the Ziwei segmentum. How could they let him leave here without doing anything to stop him? Bang! An overwhelming aura descended. Yi Futian and others sensed a paramount might. It was the aura of a strong man on the tribulation plane. They saw a middle-aged man take a step toward them somewhere. Yi Futian, you are going too far. Don't you think about leaving, said a voice. It was exactly from that middle-aged man. He was from the domain chief's manor of the Tianyin domain. As a top-level cultivator, who had gone through the first divine tribulation of the Great Path, his strength was formidable. Yi Futian had been at deep enmity with the Tianyin city since the battle back then. The Tianyin city was in a paramount position in the Tianyin domain. Even the domain chief's manor had to give it face. It was called the #1 weapon-making force in the Divine Prefecture. Back then, the lord of the Tianyin city asked Yi Futian to lend him the divine body in person. Still, Yi Futian refused, so the lord of the Tianyin city destroyed the Heavenly Mandate Academy single-handedly. Therefore, taking Yi Futian down would make a good impression on Tianyin city as well. Yi Futian, we were close to each other before, but you have gone too far this time, said Zhou Muhuang. He walked ahead, but Yi Futian was smiling coldly to himself. He and Zhou Muhuang used to be close? Seriously? Zhou Muhuang wanted to control Yi Futian to control the divine body. But Yi Futian refused to join the domain chief's manor of the Shangqing domain, and Zhou Muhuang took offense. He was definitely kicking Yi Futian when he was down at the moment. Yi Futian threw Zhou Muhuang a cold and disdainful look, which intimidated Zhou Muhuang somehow. Then Yi Futian just disappeared into thin air. Zhou Muhuang had a strong sense of crisis. He wanted to retreat, but he saw a palm thwacking toward him. The great path started to flow on his body, and he lifted a hand to parry. Bang! He reacted very fast, only not fast enough. The terrifying palm broke the defense of his great path right away, and showed up right in front of his head, making his black hair dance like crazy. Staring at the white-haired man in front of him, he felt as if his heart was in his mouth. At this moment, Yi Futian's body was shining, and had a divine light flowing on it, giving off a central and overwhelming air. In contrast, Zhou Muhuang seemed so fragile. If this palm moved down, his head would explode right away, and he would be killed there just like Ning Hua. It's none of your business. Chapter 2511. Chief Shihai. Chapter 2511. Chief Shihai powerful. Numerous people gazed at Yi Futian and saw divine lights flowing in his body. They all knew Yi Futian had built the divine body with the flesh of Xinjia the great emperor, and hence got an extraordinary constitution. By then, the aura of the great wave flowing in him was impeccable. It was the level 9 aura. What a perfect aura of the great way! Exclaimed the sword goddess. She was also a level 9 Renhuang, and had maintained this level for years. She had seen many powerful men on the level 9 Renhuang plane. However, she had never seen anyone like Yi Futian, whose aura of the Great Way was so perfect that it was as if it was made by God. The way and the body turned into one. The divine body was unparalleled, and his body was exactly the way. Zhou Muhuang, the vice chief of the domain chief's manor of the Shangqing domain, became famous even earlier than Ning Hua. He achieved the level 9 Renhuang plane many years ago. Despite that, he was overcome by a single movement while confronting Yi Futian. It was not hard to imagine how huge the gap between them was. They were on two completely different levels. Zhou Muhuang's face was livid with rage. He felt humiliated. He had intended to stop Yi Futian and others from leaving, but instead of that, he was suppressed by a single movement. It's none of your business. You don't get to intervene. How humiliating. Yi Futian was staring at him with that pair of cold eyes right in front of him. Looking into those eyes, Zhou Muhuang was somehow deeply intimidated. He saw indifference and contempt in them, as if Yi Futian had never regarded him as a serious enemy. Yi Futian was just a talented Renhuang competing for the divine body in the Shangqing domain. And their meeting back then was totally different from this one. Actually, it was him that looked down on Yi Futian instead. Whoever intervenes will be my enemy, and I won't show any mercy, said Yi Futian in a cold and disdainful tone. Then he leaped and disappeared into thin air. Without causing any fluctuation in the aura, he moved across the air without being seen. An exclaim immediately came. One after another, people started to step back. That was where the powerful cultivators from the domain chief's manor of the Tianyin domain were. Among them, a powerhouse on the tribulation plane was standing in the front, intending to attack Yi Futian and others. He paused for a few seconds after seeing Zhou Muhuang suppressed by Yi Futian. However, Yi Futian showed up among the powerhouses of the domain chief's manor of the Tianyin domain in an instant. A dreadful aura spread from him and shrouded all of the practitioners there. They all felt so pressured that they could hardly breathe. That powerhouse on the tribulation plane narrowed his eyes. He turned around to look at the white-haired man among his younger colleagues, surprised at the man's imperceptible and unpredictable movement. He showed up in another place without causing any fluctuation in the great path of space, or being detected. That power. Senior, do you want to try me? Yi Futian said to the powerhouse on the tribulation plane after turning. He sounded threatening. It was as if as long as that man had the nerve to intervene, he would kill those practitioners from the domain chief's manor of the Tianyin domain anytime. The powerful men from other domain chief's manors, who had been ready to act, stopped moving at the sight of that. They were all staring at Yi Futian. What great path of space was the one Yi Futian had shown? He was even strong enough to drive Zhou Muhuang into a corner with one single strike. With that combat power, he could kill any practitioner below the tribulation plane there. Therefore, whoever wanted to confront him would have to give it a good thought. That made the powerhouses from those domain chiefs' manors hesitate. At this moment, two apex cultivators were handling Ning Yuan together on the battlefield, but they still could not completely suppress Ning Yuan, who was in a rage. The sky was covered with the formidable sealing force. Many people looked up and decided to take a wait-and-see attitude, thinking maybe Ning Yuan could take Yi Futian and others down by himself. Practitioners from the Donghua domain, listen to my orders. Kill them. Don't show any mercy. Ning Yuan said in a cold voice. The domain chief's manor had many powerful cultivators, many of whom were quite old, but they were all somewhat hesitant at the moment. They did not think any of them was stronger than Ning Hua, but even Ning Hua was killed by Chen Yi so effortlessly. So how could they fight those people? Besides, there was Yi Futian, whose strength was unfathomable. He even defeated Zhou Muhuang with one single strike, and held the latter's life in his hands. Not to mention the other top forces from the Donghua domain. They did not report to Ning Yuan directly. Even if they held a grudge against Yi Futian, they would rather keep their noses clean. Ning Yuan, you don't know what situation you are in at all, said Yi Futian sarcastically. He showed up in front of the powerhouses of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain. As soon as he finished speaking, a blazing true fire of the sun flew out of him and turned into a dreadful solar divine sword that flowed down. The practitioners of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain instantly felt suffocated. The force of the great path that spread from Yi Futian intimidated them deeply. They realized that man was powerful enough to kill them. I attended the Donghua banquet to join the domain chief's manor and cultivate there. But everyone knows how Ning Yuan treated me. Ning Hua killed my elder brother Zhong Chan. Now that I killed Ning Hua, this blood debt has been paid, and I will not hold any other people from the Donghua domain to account. However, if anyone dares hurt the practitioners from the Ziwei segmentum, I will absolutely kill him. I won't care even if you are hiding in the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain, said Yi Futian coldly. His speech sent a shiver down the spines of the practitioners from the Donghua domain. They suddenly realized without the help from other forces of the divine prefecture, the Donghua domain alone had been inferior to the Ziwei segmentum since a long time ago. Besides the two strong cultivators fighting at the moment, the Ziwei segmentum also had Renhuang Chen, the vice-headmaster of the Ziwei Imperial Palace. Renhuang Chen, always holding the scepter of the stars in hand, had killed powerful cultivators as strong as himself before. He was definitely not weaker than Ning Yuan. That meant in terms of the top strength, the forces from the Ziwei segmentum definitely outshone the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain. And there was even less suspense in terms of the strength of Renhuang. After all, who could defeat Yi Futian and Chen Yi, who were right there? Moreover, the Ziwei segmentum had a few more level 9 Renhuang on the perfect great path. The golden-winged giant pung bird that Yi Futian was mounting was also a level 9 demon emperor. So had Ning Hua really died for nothing? The vice-chief of the domain chief's manor of the Donghua domain was killed, but no one could do anything about it. Right at this moment, an astonishing aura spread over from far away. Even the clouds were disturbed. That aura intimidated many people. A tribulation-level cultivator, many people thought. And it was probably a super powerful cultivator that had gone through the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. The Donghua Palace, a stronghold the Donghua domain established here, was connected to the strongholds of other domain chiefs' manors of the 18 domains. Could that be the chief of one of those domain chiefs' manors? A stern face showed up in the sky, giving off an unparalleled overbearing air. The might from him shrouded the earth down there. Even the force of the Grand Seal Great Path of Ning Yuan was suppressed. Chief! Many people saluted the face in the air, bowing to it. The newly arrived powerhouse was apparently a chief. It was Chief Shihai, the chief of the domain chief's manor of the West Sea domain, hailed as one of the two kings of West Sea. Not all chiefs of domain chiefs' manors were the same. There could be a huge gap between them. For example, the Donghua domain and the Shangqing domain were just average domains. The Great Bright domain, where Yi Futian had been, was an incomplete domain with only one city left. The most powerful domain chiefs' manors were those with a long history, for example, those with ancient emperors, and in particular places where the ancient god clan was still living. Donghuang the Great united the world. To check and balance various forces, he sent powerful enough people to restrict the ancient god clan, which was certainly a natural move. The West Imperial Palace used to be in its prime in the West Sea. Its leader even claimed the throne. The West Emperor in ancient times could be compared to the Great Emperor. The West Imperial Palace still had the West Emperor's inheritances these days. Shi Qiyao from the West Imperial Palace fought Yi Futian in that disturbance many years ago. She even thought about going to the Heavenly Mandate Academy to cultivate, but everything changed when Yi Futian's identity, as the descendant of Emperor Yi Qing, had been disclosed, and Donghuang the Great had shown up. The domain chief's manor of the West Sea domain was located in the West Imperial Palace region, so it had to be tough. The West Imperial Palace had been domineering the West Sea for many years, but the domain chief's manor of the West Sea domain had been rising quickly in the past few years. Chief Shihai was a paramount personage. He was overbearing and pushy, and very powerful too. He built the domain chief's manor of the West Sea domain into an influential force on his own. By then, it had almost become a rival to the West Imperial Palace. Chief Shihai was well known in the Divine Prefecture. He was a big name, and all that could be attributed to his great strength. At this moment, Chief Shihai from the Domain Chief's Manor of the West Sea domain showed up in the Donghua Palace. He did not come in person. Looking up at the stern face in the air, many people thought it was Chief Shihai's incarnation, one of his fantastic skills. However, the incarnation was also dreadfully powerful. Even though Chief Shihai was not here in person, it was enough to intimidate everyone there. Chapter 25:12. The Price You Will Pay. Chapter 25:12. The Price You Will Pay. Above the firmament, Chief Shihai stared at Yi Futian below, his face authoritative and indifferent. Yi Futian frowned. Before he got here, he did not expect that all 18 domain chiefs' manors in the Void Realm were connected. Even so, he thought he could handle it. But now, even chief-level characters had arrived. Chief Shihai, Yi Futian was acting recklessly and completely out of control. He killed my son Ning Hua at the Donghua Palace. I now ask Chief Shihai to apprehend him. Ning Yuan couldn't care less about his dignity at this moment. In title, he was the same as Chief Shihai. Both of them were chiefs under the command of the Great Emperor, and were existences of equal level. However, he understood that the two of them, in fact, were not at the same level. After all, strength determined everything. There were differences between chiefs. Nonetheless, they held the same status on paper, and shouldn't need to ask the other for help. But now, Ning Yuan didn't care so much about anything, and had asked Chief Shihai to help take down Yi Futian. Yi Futian killed his son Ning Hua, and he was wholly determined to avenge his son. In any case, Yi Futian could not be allowed to leave today as if nothing had happened. As long as he was in the hands of the cultivators from any of the domain chief's manors in the Divine Prefecture, no matter who it was, Yi Futian could forget about escaping. Once upon a time, Dong Huang the Great decided not to intervene, because he didn't wish to bully some youngster. But as an exchange, the teacher of Four Corner Village, likewise, could no longer interfere. If Yi Futian returned to the Ziwei segmentum, it would be difficult to touch him again. A powerful pressure of might came down as Chief Shihai stared at Yi Futian indifferently and said, Yi Futian, Dong Huang the Great had once given you a way out. But instead of being grateful, you dared to go to war with the principalities in the Divine Prefecture and kill indiscriminately. You don't know good from bad. His voice was authoritative and domineering, as a terrifying coercion dropped down and covered Yi Futian and the others. As he was speaking, he raised his hand and grabbed towards the space below without hesitation. This sight caused the hearts of the surrounding cultivators to tremble. Chief Shihai had made his move right away. Obviously, he wanted to take Yi Futian down. Watch out! Yi Futian came next to everyone in an instant to sweep them away, turning into a beam of light. But the speed of Chief Shihai's attack was equally astonishing. Yi Futian barely avoided the giant palm, as it was slamming down on them. Mo Yunzi, the golden-winged rock, was caught by that gigantic hand. Mo Yunzi struggled frantically, but couldn't get out of it. When he looked at Yi Futian, he made a long and sustained howl. Above the void, Chief Shihai raised Mo Yunzi's body, and he glanced indifferently at Yi Futian. A strange look flashed through his eyes. Yi Futian was actually able to take these people, and had evaded capture. Elder and I have never had any grievances or quarrels. I asked the elder to be merciful. Yi Futian said to the face that appeared in the void. Although the golden-winged rock as morphed by Mo Yunzi was humongous in size, he could not get himself out of that giant palm, firmly caught within its grasp. His eyes fixed on Yi Futian, as he appeared to be in incredible pain, and he was asking for help with his eyes. Clearly, he was in extreme discomfort at the moment. Bang! With a squeeze of Chief Shihai's hand, that gigantic hand tightened its grasp, and a crunching sound was heard. Mo Yunzi uttered a mournful scream as the body of a divine bird, as if made from pure gold, was crushed. It was so fragile in that gigantic hand. It seemed as if it could not bear its attack. Bright red blood stained that gigantic hand as blood continued to drip from the void. This was a terribly tragic scene. A divine bird was crushed to death in this manner. It was too brutal. He seemed unwilling to die like this. His massive eyes were still open, looking ahead. There was pain and reluctance in his eyes. He was the golden-winged rock, who had entered the Buddhist holy land of Spirit Mountain to cultivate. He had been enlightened by great Buddhas, and had studied many scriptures. In the future, he would have become a great demonic beast who could attain the way. But he perished here, in such a cruel manner, tortured and killed. His eyes were still staring at Yi Futian. Yi Futian stared back at him as well. He had just spoken, and Chief Shihai immediately crushed Mo Yunzi to death like stepping on an ant without any thought. At this moment, Yi Futian felt the blood in his body boiling as his heart twitched violently. His eyes couldn't leave Mo Yunzi, who had died right in front of him. Although he and Mo Yunzi didn't meet each other under the best circumstances, they had been together for more than 10 years. Over the years, Mo Yunzi had worked hard with no complaints, and he was very serious about his study while at Spirit Mountain. He had made great progress in his cultivation. Therefore, Yi Futian had always regarded this demonic beast as his own partner. But today he was tortured and killed right in front of him, in such a cruel manner by Chief Shihai. These lofty characters were cruel and ruthless. In the pursuit of their own goals, they had no concerns for other living things. He and Chief Shihai had no previous entanglements, but the other acted without mercy, and crushed his demonic beast to death without another word. If someone else besides Mo Yunzi were captured just then, their fate would be the same, crushed to death just like some insects. Above the firmament, Chief Shihai would have no idea of Yi Futian's feelings, nor did he care. Although he was the chief in the West Sea domain, the domain chief's manor had always been suppressed by the West Imperial Palace. Everyone knew that the West Imperial Palace was the king of the West Sea domain, its premier principality. Compared with the West Imperial Palace, all he lacked was the inheritance at the imperial level. Yi Futian could make up for that, as there were many inheritances from the great emperors on him. Taking down Yi Futian had thousands of benefits without any disadvantages. The opportunity had presented itself today. How could he not seize it? With a thought, the terrifying coercion continued to press down, pouncing on Yi Futian and the others again. However, under that pressure, Yi Futian still managed to disappear. He did not take anyone else with him this time, but disappeared alone, and appeared among the crowds in the West Sea domain. Before the arrival of Chief Shihai, many of the cultivators from the West Sea domain were already here. When Yi Futian appeared, an overbearing aura of the Great Path enveloped this whole area. The power of Yin froze this space in a second, and all the cultivators shuddered as their bodies were covered with a layer of frost. At the same time, Chief Shihai had controlled Li Changxing and the others. His brows furrowed slightly as he swept a glance at Yi Futian. Once again, he had broken through his suppression. Let them go, and I will stay. After they get back, I will let these people go, Yi Futian said as he looked at Chief Shihai. Very well. Chief Shihai was straightforward enough, and readily released these people. On the other side, the battle between Ning Yuan and Emperor Shi had stopped as well, and did not continue. Ning Yuan's eyes drifted towards Yi Futian, full of murderous intent. Emperor Shi, you and the others returned to Ziwei Segmentum first. Yi Futian looked at Emperor Shi and said. Emperor Shi frowned as everyone else was also looking at Yi Futian. Chief Shihai came in person, and this was a supreme cultivator, who had survived the second divine tribulation of the Great Path. If Yi Futian stayed, how could he escape such an existence? You just take care of yourselves and leave. I have my own way of leaving here. You will only hinder me by being here, Yi Futian said to Emperor Shi and the others via voice transmission. Only then did Emperor Shi nod. He said to the others, let's go. As soon as he spoke, he took everyone away with incredible speed. Neither Chief Shihai nor Ning Yuan chased after them. Chief Shihai's goal was to get Yi Futian, while Ning Yuan wanted Yi Futian dead. As long as Yi Futian was still around, no one else was important. The terrifying coercion enveloped this area, and these two great cultivators stared at Yi Futian, with no intention of letting him ever leave. Cultivators from all the domain chief's manors stood around, watching it quietly. This time, how could Yi Futian escape? Donghua Domain's sword goddess and several of her disciples were a little worried. This time, Yi Futian was alone, with no one else to help him. Even if they wanted to help him, They couldn't take any action. In the face of such absolute strength, there was no point. Their help would only spell their own deaths. Ren Huangyi, is there anything we can do to help you? Qin Qing transmitted her message to Yi Futian. Although she could not participate in this kind of battle, if Yi Futian had other needs for which she could render assistance, perhaps she could be of some help. Yi Futian felt a little warmth inside. He didn't expect that Qin Qing would be willing to be helpful at a time like this. Such kindness was in itself very rare. Thank you so much, Goddess Qin. But the goddess need not worry about me, Yi Futian replied. Qin Qing was a little doubtful when she heard Yi Futian's reply. Could Yi Futian have another way to escape this catastrophe? Very well, she replied without saying anything more. Everyone was waiting quietly. They knew that Yi Futian was waiting for his people to retreat safely, unharmed, and return to Ziwei Segmentum. However, did Yi Futian ever consider that if something happened to him, even if the others were to return to Ziwei Segmentum safely, what could they do there? Once Yi Futian was no more, the Ziwei Segmentum would most certainly be conquered and divided instantly, then plundered by mighty forces from all sides. Even Ning Yuan knew that. He didn't care about anyone else for now. As long as he could take down Yi Futian, then all the cultivators who followed Yi Futian in the Ziwei Segmentum would die tragically. He would make sure he was there to kill them all himself. The death of his son, Ning Hua, must be atoned for with the deaths of all the cultivators in Ziwei Segmentum. Time passed by slowly, and Yi Futian was still waiting for the others to get back. He would not allow any more unforeseen incidents. Is it time? In the void, Chief Shihai lowered his head to look down at Yi Futian below. Yi Futian looked up at the other, did not respond to his question, but asked, "Have you ever thought about the price for your cruelty just now?" Price? Chief Shihai looked down at the white-haired man below. Yi Futian was talking to him about the price of things? I have no idea what you are talking about. Chief Shihai had a majestic, authoritative and domineering air. He dismissed Yi Futian's question outright. At this moment, shouldn't he be thinking about the fate that was inevitably waiting for him? When I attended the Donghua banquet, Ning Yuan had the same attitude as you do now, high and lofty as if there was no one but him. But today, Ning Hua's death was the price he had to pay for his arrogance. Yi Futian spoke in a calm voice, as if he was speaking of something very trivial. Today, as the domain chief of the West Sea domain, you came here with aggression and killed my demonic beast without cause. For this you will pay. He was no longer the person that he was decades ago. He had waited for decades to have his revenge on Ning Yuan, but he would not wait so long for the debt incurred today. Is that so? Chief Shihai looked down at Yi Futian with palpable contempt in his voice. Yi Futian was threatening to make him pay? The divine light of the great path surrounded Yi Futian. His entire body was brilliant. It was as if he had turned into a sword. In the next moment, a ray of divine light broke through the air, fast to the limit. Where are you going? Ning Yuan shouted, and the force of seal directly blocked this corner of the sky. Above the firmament, infinite runes of seals appeared, unspeakably horrific. There was no way Yi Futian could escape. Boom. With a loud boom, the runes of seal were shattered immediately as the light pierced through the seal. It also broke through Chief Shihai's coercion as it went higher above the sky. This scene stunned all the cultivators, including Ning Yuan himself. The sealed space was forcibly broken by Yi Futian. When Yi Futian rushed out of this sealed space, he vanished from everyone's sight. Many cultivators released their divine consciousnesses, but they could no longer track or lock onto Yi Futian. It was as if in just a moment, he was gone without a trace. Chief Shihai, you will repent for what you have done today, said a voice from the void, which made everyone's hearts tremble. Yi Futian seemed to be stronger than they had imagined, a lot stronger. Boom! A horrific aura moved towards the distance, and even Chief Shihai hesitated for a moment before pursuing after him. Did Yi Futian escape this area just like that? Ning Yuan also flickered and disappeared from this space. All three powerful cultivators vanished in a blink of an eye. Qin Qing looked at her master, the sword goddess, and her beautiful eyes showed immense shock. She had a feeling that Yi Futian would indeed make Chief Shihai pay for what he had done. Chapter 25:13. Washed in Blood. Chapter 25:13. Washed in blood in Donghua Palace. Cultivators from all sides were waiting quietly. After a long while, Chief Shihai and Ning Yuan both returned, but they found nothing. They had lost track of him. These two top cultivators, chief-level characters, did not manage to catch up with him, and had been dumped by Yi Futian. Just by watching the gloomy expressions on the two men, these cultivators already knew the outcome. Yi Futian was gone like the wind. After Yi Futian barged his way into Donghua Palace and killed Ning Hua, he left right in front of these two great chiefs. It is very possible that it is Buddhist celerity, one of the 6 superpowers of Buddhism, Chief Shihai said with a sullen face. His tone was extremely cold. All the major domain chiefs' manners knew that Yi Futian had gone to the Western Heaven, but things that happened there were not so easy to inquire, especially things that happened at Spirit Mountain, which was only known to the Buddhas there. Not many knew about the death of Saint Jinshan either. Only those at Spirit Mountain knew something about it. However, no one knew the exact manner of his death. Those cultivators who were as far away as the Divine Prefecture would definitely have no way of knowing. Chief Shihai, what should we do? Ning Yuan got lost even faster. Yi Futian had just left when he had already lost track of him. He couldn't catch up to Yi Futian at all, and his divine consciousness could not lock onto anything. He was so much slower than Yi Futian. This made Ning Yuan felt really helpless. He found that his strength alone might not be enough to kill Yi Futian. Therefore, he could only pin his hopes on Chief Shihai. You are asking me? Chief Shihai looked at Ning Yuan. He was in a very foul mood, so he didn't bother giving Ning Yuan the courtesy and retorted directly. Ning Yuan was stunned and didn't look particularly pleased. However, he didn't dare to refute the man either. Return to West Sea Palace, Chief Shihai said, taking his people from the West Sea Domain Chief's manor with him to leave. He had a terrible feeling about all of this. If Yi Futian had really cultivated Buddhist celerity, it would complicate the matter greatly. He did not expect that Yi Futian had the ability to escape under his nose. While Chief Shihai led his people to leave through the teleportation Grand Matrix, Ning Yuan looked at everyone and said, after you get back, you must inform the chiefs of all the domains that Yi Futian is now a very dangerous man, and he will endanger all the domains of the Divine Prefecture. When everyone heard what Ning Yuan had to say, they were not impressed. It was no more Ning Yuan's own selfish desire to leverage the power of each domain chief's manor to deal with Yi Futian. However, some of these domain chiefs' manors had no quarrels with Yi Futian. Unless they coveted the inheritances in Yi Futian's possession or the Ziwei segmentum, they would not proactively antagonize him. Ning Yuan left with a gloomy face. The news here would soon spread, and all the major forces would know. There would also be many people who would be on the lookout for Yi Futian. Wait until Yi Futian was taken down. He swore he would wash Ziwei segmentum in blood to avenge Ning Hua. Qin Qing and the others looked at one another, and they were all a little surprised. Yi Futian actually managed to leave unscathed. It seemed that he would have another adventure waiting for him. Buddhist celerity, the sword goddess secretly marveled. Did he go to Spirit Mountain? A few days later, at the West Sea Realm. This was the interface opened up by the West Sea domain in the original realm. It was a little more robust than the Donghua realm. The cultivators in the West Sea realm were dispatched from the West Sea domain, including several top principalities. Even the West Imperial Palace, which was part of the ancient god clan, was also stationed here at the West Sea realm. No matter how powerful they were independently, they belonged to the West Sea domain. Officially, they were in sync with the domain chief's manor from the West Sea domain. At this moment, in the city of West Sea Realm, a man in white appeared. He seemed to arrive silently, just appeared out of nowhere, strolling quietly inside the city. After a while, he walked to a place and stopped. With a thought, he was suddenly surrounded with sword will. His entire body was radiant, like the body of a sword. This sight caused the surrounding cultivators to step aside and make way. They looked at the white-haired man and marveled at the strong sword will that was coming from him. The white-haired man raised his hand, and suddenly there was a sword diagram that appeared above the firmament, puffing out an extremely terrifying current of swordsmanship. It blocked out the sky and the sun. The sword will circulated above the firmament, and that terrifying aura continued to move further away into the distance. What was he going to do? Many started to retreat as soon as they felt the aggression coming from that sword will. Even cultivators in the Runhuang realm had gotten far away from here. No one knew what this white-haired cultivator intended to do, and they felt it was better to stay as far away from him as possible. That flowing sword will pointed to a place in the distance, and in that direction, the hearts of many palpitated, looking in the direction where that terrifying sword will was going, which turned out to be the direction of the West Sea Palace. He wanted to attack the West Sea Palace? Who was this man? Above the firmament, the diagram was expanding until it covered up everything in the sky, and the cultivators below felt a faint sense of suffocation. Soon, they could feel the might of that sword for hundreds of miles, and it was still spreading further away. Furthermore, above that sword diagram above the firmament, everyone could also sense an extremely tyrannical aura from the great path of space. And all this took place in a very short period of time. The white-haired man floated in the air and stood in front of the sword diagram of the void. Then he slowly extended his arm and pointed ahead. In an instant, the sword diagram released an infinite divine light, as the sword will pierced through the space, ignoring the distance or the space, and headed towards the distance. West Sea Palace was where the West Sea Domain Chief's manor was stationed in the original realm. Many powerful cultivators stayed in the Domain Chief's manor. At this time, people in West Sea Palace were cultivating, and some were discussing amongst themselves. In front of a hall, a group of cultivators was walking out at this moment. They had just finished discussed where they were going for their next trials. These were all elite cultivators from the Domain Chief's manor, and there were also Renhuang in the 9th realm among them. They were walking and chatting at the same time. At this moment, a cultivator frowned slightly, vaguely feeling that something was not right. It was as if danger was approaching. "What aura is that?" he murmured. The others released their perception as well, and then they all frowned. Someone said, "It's a sword will, a very strong sword will. This sword will seems to be heading this way." A Runhuang in the 9th realm spoke up. His eyes looked into the distance, and in the next moment, he saw countless divine swords above the firmament, completely sheltering the sky like golden lightning that came through the space. "Be careful," he yelled as his face changed to one of shock. Everyone released the most tyrannical aura of the Great Path to surround themselves. The divine sword slammed down, the spatial distance notwithstanding, and landed inside the West Sea Palace. "Watch out!" A group of cultivators levitated into the air, and the aura of the Great Path burst out from them. But their defense was directly penetrated by the divine swords. The golden divine swords penetrated their bodies without hesitation, and shattered them, as swords turned into golden light. Boom, boom, boom. All these people were slain one after the other, as buildings pulverized and exploded like mad. There was total chaos inside the West Sea Palace, as it was completely submerged by sword will. "Get the chief, quick!" someone shouted. But Chief Shihai had already gotten here. He was cultivating before, and did not perceive what was happening outside. By the time he did perceive it, he was already one step too late. By the time he got here, the sky full of sword will suddenly seemed to stand still. Even if it didn't stop, its speed had slowed down, losing its powerful lethality. However, at this point, the West Sea Palace was already in a bloody mess, with heavy casualties. "Chief!" someone wailed, their eyes bloody red as they stared at the incarnation of Chief Shihai in the sky. Chief Shihai's eyes were extremely cold, an overwhelming murderous intent coming from him. His divine consciousness covered the distance and landed where Yi Futian was. He called out coldly, "Yi Futian." Was this the price Yi Futian was talking about before? He had actually come to the West Sea Palace, intending to do murders. Buzz! A monstrous coercion erupted, and the figure of Chief Shihai disappeared. After a moment, he appeared where he thought Yi Futian was, but Yi Futian was no longer there. His face suddenly revealed extreme shock. Yi Futian at this time had actually appeared in the West Sea Palace. The cultivators in the West Sea Palace also revealed expressions of shock as they stared at the man that appeared in the void. Yi Futian pointed his finger downward, and the sword intent of destruction exploded in an instant. Many Renhuang were directly penetrated by the divine sword and died, their eyes still fixed on the man in the void. They heard that the chief had killed Yi Futian's demonic beast at Donghua Palace a few days ago, and then went into hot pursuit of Yi Futian, after he somehow managed to escape. They didn't think that Yi Futian would dare to come to West Sea Palace himself, and kill the people here just a few days later. "You are insolent!" A domineering voice resounded throughout the entire West Sea Palace. When Chief Shihai appeared again, Yi Futian disappeared once more. This time, Chief Shihai did not slacken the slightest, and an aura of a terrific great path erupted as his divine consciousness locked onto Yi Futian. He was worried that Yi Futian would once again return to West Sea Palace, continuing his killing spree. "Chief Shihai, I told you that you will pay for what you did, and you will repent for it. This is just the beginning." An extremely sharp voice spoke, and it fell across the city. Countless people had heard it, and their hearts were beating violently. It was Yi Futian. He had come to West Sea Palace for a bloodbath, for revenge. The entire West Sea domain was in an uproar, and there were chatters by countless cultivators. Many cultivators had traveled through the air and came to the space above the West Sea Palace. Their attention focused on the place destroyed by the sword will. It was just a ruin now. Many cultivators in the domain chief's manor were slaughtered, killed right in front of Chief Shihai. It was just as when Chief Shihai killed Yi Futian's demonic beast in front of him. "Is he so terrifying already?" some cultivators murmured. Everyone in the original realm had heard of the name of Yi Futian. Even those who came from the divine prefecture must have heard of his deeds. A few days ago, Yi Futian reappeared in front of many cultivators and slew Ninghua in a battle, thus alarming the domain chief's manor of various domains. However, he left in a hurry, pursued by Chief Shihai, and his demonic beast was killed in the process. But who would have thought that in just a few days, Yi Futian would have his revenge by washing the entire West Sea Palace in a bloodbath? What's more, the chief of West Sea seemed unable to track him down. In another direction, there was a group of cultivators with extraordinary temperaments. One of the elders amongst them was a cultivator of the Tribulation Plain. This group of men was the cultivators from the West Imperial Palace. The old man laughed a cold laugh in his heart when he beheld this scene, and said in a low voice, "This time, the domain chief's manor in the West Sea domain has gotten itself in deep trouble." Who was Yi Futian? Wasn't it clear enough from back then? When Yi Futian's cultivation was yet small and weak, many powerful people had already died at his hands. And now, he had become much stronger. Obviously, he appeared again, this time because he was prepared. Therefore, he dared to show up to kill Ninghua. No one imagined that Chief Shihai, who was accustomed to being overbearing and did whatever he wanted, had started an altercation with Yi Futian before he figured out just who Yi Futian really was. Now it seemed that this powerful and aggressive Chief Shihai had gotten himself into something he might not be able to finish. Chapter 25:14. Collecting the Debt. Chapter 25:14. Collecting the Debt. The news of the bloodbath that took place in West Sea Palace spread quickly towards the original realm. At first, it was the domain chief's manors of all 18 domains of the Divine Prefecture. Then it spread to other major forces. By now, they all learned that Yi Futian had gone to the world of Buddhism and cultivated the superpower of Buddha's celerity, and he had washed the West Imperial Palace in blood. In no time, this celebrated figure, who had disappeared for 20 years, was once again in the sight of all original realm. And his reappearance shook the original realm. The domain chief's manor of West Sea Domain in the original realm was washed in blood. There were heavy casualties among the cultivators who were inside the domain chief's manor. Naturally, Ning Yuan was one of the first to get the news. After he heard it, he felt a tremor in his heart. Was Yi Futian already this frightening? He suddenly thought that if it wasn't because Yi Futian had his concerns before, he might have already washed Donghua Palace in blood in a similar fashion. Even Chief Shihai could not take him down. So how could Ning Yuan do it? He couldn't help but feel a little hopeless. Wouldn't this mean that he didn't even have the qualification to speak of revenge now? If he dared to touch any of Yi Futian's people, the entire Donghua palace would probably be terminated. This was precisely the effect that Yi Futian wanted to achieve. What happened in Donghua Palace made Yi Futian realize that those top figures did not care about the life and death of the weak. In the future, if the cultivators from the Ziwei segmentum want to ever walk freely, then he had to make sure the domain chief's manor of the Western Sea domain would be an object lesson to everyone. This was to warn the others not to touch any cultivators from the Ziwei segmentum. Great strength was the best and only deterrent. Yi Futian thought of that desperate look in Mo Yunzi's eyes again, and he felt a pang of heartache. If he had moved just a little slower that time, those who died would not just be Mo Yunzi, but also Li Chongqing and the others. He clearly understood that Chief Shihai at the time had no concerns for any of their lives. If that giant hand had caught anyone else, they would all ended the same way, crushed to death. Therefore, he would never allow this kind of thing to happen again. And this debt was far from being collected to his satisfaction. As he said to Chief Shihai, this was only the beginning. However, it seemed that the Ziwei segmentum, at least for the time being, could not be unsealed just yet. To the west of the Divine Prefecture, there was a boundless sea, known as the West Sea. In the West Sea, there were countless islands of various sizes. Some islands may be as small as a hill, while larger islands may be an entire continent. This sea and its endless islands formed one of the 18 domains of the Divine Prefecture, the West Sea domain. The two largest islands in the West Sea domain were called islands, but in fact, they were continents in the sea, vast and boundless. These two islands were Tsonghuan and Yingzhou. Tsonghuan Island was the place of cultivation for West Imperial Palace, and it had a long history. There were countless islands of varying sizes all around Tsonghuan Island. It was still incredibly prosperous to this day. The closer the areas were to Tsonghuan Island, the more prosperous they were. In the other location, Yingzhou Island was across from it. It was the island where the domain chief's manor of West Sea domain was located. It was also surrounded by countless islands. It was once the second largest island in the West Sea domain, and had an equally long and ancient history. In addition, in the boundless West Sea domain, there were many magical places, such as celestial islands, which were rarely visited or occupied by anyone, adding to their mysteries. Even though Yingzhou Island was called an island, it was actually an infinite and vast continent in the sea. The domain chief's manor in the West Sea domain was not in the center of Yingzhou Island. On the contrary, the domain chief's manor of the West Sea domain was located in Yingzhou City, and Yingzhou City was built by the sea, ancient and majestic. In the coastal region near Yingzhou City, countless ships were coming and going. These ships were all of them extraordinary, cast by implements. They traveled at a terrifying speed, shuttling through the sea. Of course, there were also cultivators traveling in the sky as well. Standing near the sea in Yingzhou City and looking up, one could see a continuous trail of cultivators in the sky above that never stopped. At this time, there was a single boat on the sea far away. This lonesome boat looked very simple, a young man standing on it. The man was extremely handsome, dressed in all white. He was as pure as the falling snow. His long silvery hair was casually draped over his shoulders. There was an indescribable attractiveness about him. Even female cultivators who happened to pass by couldn't help but gave him a couple of glances. The man on the lone boat was none other than Yi Futian. He came from the original realm and traveled all this way to Yingzhou City of the West Sea domain, which was also Chief Shihai's lair. The boat sprinted towards the coast, seemingly at ease, but had already gone ashore in a few moments. Some people were watching Yi Futian, who found that after he walked onto the shore, his figure disappeared right from the spot without even leaving a trace of aura. It's no wonder that he has such an exceptional temperament. It seems that his strength is unfathomable. Someone secretly marveled without giving the matter more thought. They then continued on with their own business. After Yi Futian entered Yingzhou City, he didn't worry about doing much of anything else, but began to gather information. In order to deal with the enemy, he had to understand them first. This was not the West Sea Palace in the original realm, and the domain chief's manor in West Sea Domain was not so easy to break into either. He knew that Chief Shihai in the original realm was just an exterior incarnation, so he was able to get rid of him with ease. However, in this Yingzhou city, the one he encountered might be the stronger version of the man himself. Of course, Yi Futian didn't much care about that, even if it was Chief Shihai himself. With his current realm of cultivation, coupled with Buddha's celerity, even Saint Jinshan could not catch up to him at the time. Chief Shihai may be powerful, but conceivably, his realm may not be on the same level as Saint Jinshan's. Yingzhou Tavern was the largest tavern in all of Yingzhou City. It was the property of the domain chief's manor, and a descendant from the domain chief's manor was in charge of the place here. Because it was the property of the domain chief's manor, Yingzhou Tavern was often the gathering place for influential people from all over the West Sea Domain. At this time, in the open area on top of Yingzhou Tavern, a group of cultivators was here, discussing cultivation. They had attracted many other cultivators from far away to gather here as well. Looking up, it was evident that the person leading the discussion above was someone special. The cultivator who sat at the head of the table, on the high seat, was someone named Qin Luo. He was from the main line of the domain chief's manor. Chief Shihai was from the Qin clan, and had taken root in the West Sea Domain, and strengthened his line for many years. Qin Luo's talent for cultivation was very strong by nature, and he was a junior figure that Chief Shihai greatly valued. He had been cultivating for more than 100 years, and had by now reached Renhong in the 9th realm. His combat effectiveness was exceptional. He was an extremely well-known figure in Yingzhou City. He made his name when he was young, hailed as the war god of Yingzhou. Now he was on the verge of tribulation plain. The people who came here today were celebrated individuals, which explained Qin Luo's presence in hosting them in person. "Have you heard of the news from Original Realm?" said an old man spoke, and everyone nodded. "I heard that Yi Futian has cultivated the superpower of Buddhism. Even the exterior incarnation of the chief had difficulties tracking him down. The domain chief's manor in the Original Realm was destroyed because of Yi Futian's sneak attack," someone said. "Sneak attack?" Someone jeered and said, "This Yi Futian is said to have reached the 9th realm. Some even say that he is now Renhuang invincible. Ninghua was no competition after all." "Renhuang invincible? What arrogance!" A middle-aged man clad in a robe with 8 trigrams said sarcastically, "How many celebrated figures are in a world this vast?" Just the West Sea Domain alone had many extraordinary genius talents with awesome combat effectiveness. Everything aside, Qin Luo, after defeating the cultivators from all sides that one time, had now been cultivating for many years and reached the peak of Renhuang realm. If he were to encounter Yi Futian, it was not impossible that they would have a fight. "That's right, if Yi Futian doesn't run away when he meets our war god of Yingzhou, he will be detained for sure," someone else said, clearly intending to flatter. After all, Ning Hua, the vice chief of Donghua Domain, and Zhou Muhuang, vice chief of Shangqing Domain, which one of them was weak? This Yi Futian easily crushed Zhou Muhuang and slaughtered other Renhuang in the 9th realm. His strength must be incredible, but he is cruel by nature and thirsts for blood, and he has killed many of our people in the domain chief's manor. If I ever catch sight of him, no matter his strength, I shall try my best to kill him." Qin Luo spoke lightly, as if it was an easy thing to do. "This man is unparalleled in the art of escape, and will inevitably run. Even the chief had difficulty capturing and killing him," someone else said. But that was the exterior incarnation of the chief. "If he dares to come to Yingzhou, he will die for sure," Qin Luo said nonchalantly, and everyone around him nodded in agreement. They toasted to that very sentiment. Just as they were talking, suddenly, another person appeared in the tavern. This man was dressed in all white with a head of white hair, handsome and exceptional. His sudden appearance stunned many people. The appearance of this man was without the slightest fluctuation in aura. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. But judging from his temperament, he must be extremely extraordinary, and presumably with a high level of realm. Otherwise, they would have perceived his coming. No one dared to underestimate him, And Qin Luo was looking at him now as well. He put down his wine cup and asked, Qin Luo is my name here at Yingzhou Tavern. May I ask who you are? Yi Futian looked at Qin Luo without the slightest disturbance in those deep-set eyes of his. He replied, I am the person you were just threatening to kill. I am here now and I will not be running away. His voice faded, and the hearts of the people in the tavern skipped a beat collectively. Yi Futian. They were just talking about him. And Qin Luo had declared that he would do his best to destroy Yi Futian if he ever showed up. He had threatened that if Yi Futian was ever here in Yingzhou, he was a dead man. The next moment, Yi Futian appeared in front of them in person, standing in front of them just like this. Qin Luo's expression changed in an instant. It was as if he was suddenly facing the greatest enemy in his life. Although his words were flippant enough before, he knew in his heart just how terrifying Yi Futian was. The aura of the Great Path exploded in an instant. A terrifying great path of ice seal directly covered this entire space, and the tavern turned into ice in a second. Yi Futian's body seemed to be frozen inside this block of ice as well. However, in the ice, Yi Futian turned slightly, raising his arm. He did not move quickly, but the movement was completely fluid, as if he was one with heaven and earth. He dropped his finger down and pointed in the direction where Qin Luo was. A light appeared in the ice, which penetrated Qin Luo's brow chakra. Then a loud blast was heard. Qin Luo's body had been pulverized into nothing instantaneously. In the ice, every one of the cultivators were horrified as they beheld this sight. Their expressions changed to one with shock. They felt that their hearts were about to stop beating. Was this Yi Futian really so frightening? Bang! Yi Futian turned his feet around ever so slightly, and the magnificent Yingzhou Tavern shattered and collapsed. The ice dissipated at the same time. In the distance, countless eyes were looking at this side. They saw Yi Futian suspended in the air with exceptional distinction and grace. He turned around, and his eyes were fixed on the distance where the domain chief's manor was located. Tell Chief Shihai, I've come to collect. Yi Futian left with this simple message before he disappeared. It was as if he had never been there at all. He was here. He came from the original realm to the land of the divine prefecture, and came directly to Yingzhou City for the kill. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.